both languid and rushed. Ooh, oh, let's go. Let's go. This movie bored you, and 2049 is your favorite movie of all time? I thought that might be funny, by the way. If we looked at some bad reviews of Dune. Like, let's see what people are pissed off about. All right, I went to the half-star reviews. Let's look at this here. Shit was mad boring. At least I got to watch it with the girl I really liked. Then we had wild sex afterwards. Okay, that's going to get my TikTok taken down. I watched this at home. Theaters suck. What the F do people see in this? The quality is shit. And why did Villeneuve put a floating watermark that said 1x bet going around the screen? Also, I didn't know they did intermissions because there was some Indian dude telling me about gambling. Pretty fucked up, man. Also, the audio sucked. They didn't edit out the coughing on set. Stupid. You're all sheep. This one's a critique of abhorrent Islamophobia around the world. What harm would it have brought to have people actually from the region be represented? I mean, I'm sure there's a whole critique of Dune's story. Like, I'm sure you can critique a white man making a fucking book about imperialism and fucking Islam and shit like that. I'm sure you can critique Dune the book all day, but like, they're just adapting the book, you know? If they didn't steal the entire plot from the Star Wars prequels, that's so funny. That's gotta be a joke. The laziest film adaptation I've ever watched in my life. Dune 2, more like Dune. She ride on my worm until I create my own water. This is interesting. This film still has the same problem as the first one. It just drags and drags. With a runtime of almost 3 hours, it feels like well over 3 hours. You have this almost 3-hour film, and it feels like the plot barely advances until the last half hour of it. Okay, so this is all the same statement. For the first 2 hours, I was fighting to stay awake. The best part of the film is, okay, all of this is 1 point. You can get rid of that. Both languid and rushed. Here, this is what I was looking for, man. This is the type of shit I was looking for. Those like intellectualized bad reviews. That's what I'm coming for. Both languid and rushed. Not just how Paul abruptly decides to become Muhammad after all, but a lot of the others too. Great ending, but it's hard to justify creatively why the whole thing couldn't be one movie. It's also lacking in pure weirdness. The first one is better. A tiny part of me has always wondered if my disdain for part one can be attributed to the fact that I never got to see it on the big screen. Well, I can rest easy now. IMAX or not, I find Villeneuve's brutalist rendition of Frank Herbert's psychedelic world painfully unimaginative. Despite my million complaints about the characterization of Fade Rotha, Austin Butler is still the MVP. So it's just like contrarian point and then mid like highly like agreeable cold take at the bottom. It's just beautiful. Lost somewhere in Dune was the hint of a better movie that compelled me enough to watch its second installment. For films of such a large scale, it's a wonder why the stakes are so low. In part 2, italicized, our main protagonist, Paul Atreides, remains unchallenged. At no point, he remains unchallenged. Wow. So, what you find not challenging is seeing visions of you starving billions of people because you're a messianic dictator. So that's unchallenging. 2, basically being hated by everyone in the Freeman clan except the believers while your whole family just got killed. That's not challenging. 2, having to fucking traverse the desert and ride worms and figure all that shit out. This dude, all he does is get challenged. At no point is there a doubt he'll achieve whatever he sets out to. What, do you think he was gonna get sniped by a Harkonnen 40 minutes in? It's a fucking movie, dude. Yeah, I think he'll make it to the second one. You didn't think anything of that was tense or thrilling? At no point is there doubt he'll achieve whatever he sets out to. 'Tis but a fable of an earnest leader turned unburdened vengeful messiah from one breath to the next. Rendered conflictless, we are left with a vacuous but gorgeous cinematic spectacle, and maybe some idle questions about a couple characters' motivations, but who cares really? Damn, what is the point of even going to see movies? Ooh, oh, let's go. Let's go. Show, don't tell. You know, that's really important. That's really important when it comes to movies. You want to show, you don't want to tell. I come out of Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2 perplexed. The proposition works. Wait a second. I love when people try to write better than they can. After a middling experience rewatching the first installment, I am nonetheless excited and curious to witness what I am about to witness. Thrilling and grandiose, we are thrust into the story with force, and the first moments are fascinating. A whole new status quo, and dunes as far as the eye can see. Then the romance builds up, and I like that. And I like that shit. Then Cupid's arrows start flying through the air. And I like that shit. I like what they got going on. I like that chemistry. Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya sell the awkwardness and wonder of blooming romance. I start to care. Javier Bardem's character is a delight, oozing with charisma. The first act excites me. I feel part of the tribe in a way. Muad'Dib Usul is born in the most man, you don't like this movie? You remember fucking everything. I forgot his name is even Usul. In the most exciting sequence in the film, we are then introduced to Fade Othra, the unrecognizable Austin Butler. He's recognizable. Weird and menacing. Cannibal, murderer, all in all maniac. My interest peaked. And then that was it. That was the last scene I truly enjoyed. Why? Because of 15 minutes of diversion about the fucking snake blood. You have a movie that's literally trimmed to just all protein. They've taken a fucking 500-page book and they've shrunk it into just this little shrink wrap of protein for you to eat in 2.5 hours. And because of one probably 10-minute lull to you, that's when they lost me. Dude, the end is the culmination of the entire movie. Let's hear it. I want to hear their reasoning. Time feeling longer and longer and my enjoyment hindering. They definitely pulled out the Subway Surfer when this came on. But not replaced by dread or fear, just nothing. Boredom, if you'd like to give it a name. By the 2-hour mark, I was quietly waiting for this to end. Really? Dude, what's happening at the 2-hour mark? I feel like he's straight up giving a fucking speech. There's an epic moment happening there. Quietly waiting for this to end. Not gonna go into deeper details that confuse and annoy me because they may not be Villeneuve's fault. The credits roll. I walk out before the end because I've sat in these seats long enough at that point. And on the walk home and discussing it with Mads, I tried to make sense of my feelings. I try to understand what feels off to me. And suddenly, a revelation. I'm talking about how many wide shots are in this thing. I try to explain the way it's shot to my partner. And I can. Very easily. Wide shot to open a scene or show a big thing a crowd. An over-the-shoulder shot for any reaction dialogue. An occasional medium shot. All static. And then the action begins. The camera sweeps the battlefield in one mechanical motion, and that's it. There are no interesting visuals that aren't provided by CGI stunt work or models. Yes, it's impressive. Yes, it's grandiose. But it gets old. Fast. Not once in this nearly 3-hour movie does the camera feel alive. The camera isn't watching. It shows. And ultimately, that's what it boils down to. That's also the root of my problem with part 1. And now that I think about it, my problem with Villeneuve. The only reason it works in Blade Runner 2049, one of my all-time favorite films. This movie bored you, and 2049 is your favorite movie of all time? Y'all gotta stop writing these reviews right after you see movies. Oh my god. Y'all gotta you guys have to give it some time. You can't even connect the dots that if you like 2049 and you were bored by a movie by the exact same director, maybe give it a little time and maybe you were wrong. Maybe you just don't have a good attention span. The only reason it works in Blade Runner 2049, one of my all-time favorite films, is because this cold, calculating style perfectly illustrates the character's distance from humanity. Dune should be full of perspective, but it has one. A pretty one to be sure, but an unbearably neutral one. Now, that last part is way more interesting than the rest of the review. I wish they would expound on that. This was okay. Better than the first, but not by much. Some generalized thoughts. The visuals and score were pretty peak, and I like the idea of Paul as an intentional, power-hungry white savior. Fade was an awful character. Where was his character development or character overall? If you remove him from the story, literally nothing changes. Zendaya and Timothy's chemistry was non-existent. Their romance happened so fast, along with the time jump I got whiplash. The last fight scene, while predictable, was well choreographed. I had fun. The random fetus shots throughout the movie. Oh yeah, fuck all of you who call Across the Spider-Verse an incomplete film because of its ending and then hype this movie up. That's funny, dude. That's really funny. This is insane. That movie did not have an ending, bro. That did not have a third act as a picture, as a film. The arc that this movie has of where Paul is at the beginning to where he ends up at the end is enormous. It's literally universe spanning. The Spider-Verse movie, what the fuck happens to him? Nothing. Literally that whole movie is, I'm gonna do my own thing. That's the point of the whole movie, is at a certain point, you just gotta do your own thing. That's sort of the point of the movie. But it builds up this entire world, and that literally does not come to any kind of showdown of all these movies for just that movie. The things that only that movie set up, like The Spot and 2099 and all this shit. None of those things ever came to any sort of climax at the end at all. Anyways, the thing is, guys, is it's just a very, very strong picture. It's going to penetrate culturally a lot more than Avatar. So it's a strong picture, like one of the Star Wars, I think it's fair to compare it to, Lord of the Rings, Avatar, Terminator, like these movies, like they're just good movies. They just satisfy. They satisfy audiences. This is what audiences want. They want to hear a good story. If the story's not good, people are not interested. I'm talking from pure industry, Hollywood, product, business standpoint, and also just the art of making a commercial picture that is good. Good, not just that sells well, but that is good, that is made out of sterling silver or gold or diamond, that will stand the test of time. They have made that with Dune 2. They fucking just have, dude. I did not expect that, but we have no choice but to glaze, unfortunately.